Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of OCDTV. I am Steve Danger Awesome, and this is my danger zone, which is also awesome. Tonight, we're going to be covering the topic of the best and worst tabletop role-playing games. With me to discuss this tonight, the man that most of you know introduced me to Dungeons & Dragons, but what you might not know is he introduced me to the other two members of the unholy trinity, comic books and heavy metal. And yet, despite my exposure to those things, I never turned gay, smoked crack, or participated in a ritualistic homicide. So, hail Satan, I guess. Keith Martin!
And didn't turn promiscuous.
No, hey.
Maybe.
Hey. Bad. Also with me tonight, a lone crusader on a shadowy flight into a dangerous world where people are wrong on the internet. Brian Connors!
Guilty.
Okay, so let's start with the best. So for number 3 best tabletop role-playing game, we came up with West End Games' Star Wars role-playing game, using what became colloquially referred to as the D6 system.
Right.
And let's just talk about this for a second. It was the first Star Wars role-playing game before Hasbro took over the license under Wizards of the Coast, because Lucas owned 10% of Hasbro, and let's all just bring it back. And so it was before
keep all our money in-house.
Before you had the D20 edition, and then the Saga edition, and then now they farmed it out to somebody else, I guess.
But Last Unicorn Games, I believe.
Yeah, but nobody.
It's actually called something Rebellion. I forget.
Yeah,
because they did Edge of Empire, and then they did Shadows of Rebellion, something like that.
Well, the point is, we don't know anything about it, and there's probably a reason for it.
I picked up the book and kind of flipped through it.
And I think what people remember most about West End's version, I think, in my opinion, would be how freeform it was.
Yeah.
You know, you had points in your attributes. Each of those attributes had a set of skills. You spent your experience points on distributing those, and you could kind of be whatever you wanted. You wrote down what you were at the top, but there were no classes. There was no class. There wasn't anything. You could customize your character any way you wanted to, and they just had piles and piles and piles of rule books.
Yes.
And statistics to the point where Lucasfilm made the stats in the role-playing game books canon.
Yes.
You know, the number of turbo laser batteries.
Timothy Zahn actually
Star Destroyer.
actually used the source books for writing his books, and to the point where he actually explicitly mentions one of the stats in one of his books when they're talking about loading up Luke's X-Wing.
That would matter to me if I cared about anything Timothy Zahn ever said or did.
Hey, at least it's not Kevin Anderson.
No, well, you know what? The last remnants of the Old Republic have been swept away by Disney's legal department.
That's right. Let's rehash my old joke. Awesome.
Yes, thank you. I'm not saying I hated the EU. It's just most of it was anything when you have a bunch of different people just getting money thrown at them.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of, you know, the paperback mill and everything else, and these dumb ideas that were just getting printed because Lucas was like, slap Star Wars on it, and print me more money.
Games game was pretty cool. I enjoyed that a lot. My favorite setting, part of that, was when they did the Knights of the Old Republic setting. That was pretty cool.
Right.
I liked doing that one. That was a lot of fun.
Which is, Knights of the Old Republic 1 being the only other part of the expanded universe I really liked.
Yes.
Yeah, the other game. But
right.
Of course, that was based on the D20 edition. But anyway, I think we can all agree that part of what made that game so interesting and compelling to us was the freeform stat mechanics, and that would later come to influence.
One of my only gripes, though, before we go on to the next one, just the idea of the pip and spending.
Yeah.
That was just one of like, what?
Yeah, it should just be a point. I think most of us found that to be a bit silly, but
yes. Okay. Back to your
although they were okay. Back to my segue
that I killed.
Of D6. We'll just pretend that didn't happen. It segues nicely into number 2 on the list, which is World of Darkness.
The storyteller system from White Wolf.
Which is, of course, very similar in a sense of having, you have stats, you have you have abilities, you have skills, and they're all 1 to 5, and you spend your experience points on those and your other magical abilities.
Granted, it winds up with you owning an insane number of D10s, but especially if you're the game master.
Well, I think what really they did, and other game systems had done this before, but the failure and success rule.
Yeah.
Because you weren't, Star Wars broke down because it was cumulative.
Yeah.
Whereas Storyteller, you just counted up, okay, which ones are above a 6.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you're done. And so I think that was really
And
important.
how many successes you got.
Yeah.
And it was cool, sort of like vampire and werewolf and mage, and there were all these little ways it was chopped up, and it was actually really got a lot of girls playing for the first time.
Yeah, in the 90s, yeah.
It was
Well,
really-
especially the LARP side of things.
Yeah.
But I did find one of the things when I ran a couple of sessions was that it was really easy. If you couldn't figure out how to do something, all you had to do was, look at the sheet and figure out an attribute, a skill that worked together. Basically,
Instead of
what I'm
difficulty.
saying is you could bullshit and get away with it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
just make it up. Yeah.
Especially mage.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super freeform.
That was lots of fun.
I always wondered if it was possible to create a recursive paradox backlash in Mage. A paradox backlash so bad it created its own paradox.
Get on that.
Oh, I'm on it.
On that. And then we should mention New World of Darkness, which was essentially the same system, but not as much
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, well,
The stats weren't as high.
Well, the system when they did that was actually really good. The system
Yeah,
itself,
very intact.
Yeah.
I didn't like what they did with the setting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think part of the reason the original World of Darkness was so successful was because of the meta plot.
Yes.
And they completely dropped that and sort of dropped all of the. It was kind of like, plot-wise and setting-wise, what Highlander 2 did to Highlander 1.
Yeah, maybe.
See, one of the things I liked about the old World of Darkness is that it, in some ways, the plot line matured along with the players. Because at the very beginning of Mage, for example, you had this understanding that the technocracy was evil, and something sort of similar happened with the Sabbat and Vampire.
Yeah,
As you go along, you realize that you can role play these people. They're not evil. They just have different goals. And it got to the point where I think in the
It's
third
other
edition,
point of view.
I think in the third edition of Mage, I think they included the technocracy as playable
Oh,
characters.
yeah.
There's a whole
technocracy.
technocracy,
I love technocracy.
I'm not sure this guy, you want to play the bad guy.
I always want to play the bad guy.
Yeah. He was playing Sabbat before it was cool.
That's right.
Well, the Sabbat, of course. I mean, in those cases, even then, you're just looking at something.
Playing Lost and Brought for the win.
It's like, what else is there? Vampires who've decided to abandon their humanity. It's an interesting idea, and it's not
Actually
necessarily
enjoy
evil.
what they are.
No, and again, they allowed just in my opinion, what players were already doing anyway. And
But as far as the
that's-
system goes, the simplicity of that system is great. I love, the one single kind of dice, and then, set the difficulty number, add your attribute skill, boom, there it is.
My only complaint with it would be actually the same with Star Wars, is they were really stingy with experience points, the recommended experience points.
Yeah.
It's like after one session you get 5, it's like, but I need 7 to raise this one stat.
Right, well,
you
they want to make it hard for you to...
Yeah, but most people only game once a week, if
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It was a little, and Star Wars was the same way.
I think they're just presumptuous.
Yeah.
And you have to remember that White Wolf was run by a whole bunch of pretentious gamer nerds.
Oh, yeah. I mean, not all of them, though. I mean, okay.
No, they all were a whole bunch of
I know.
pretentious.
Well, not all. They couldn't all be.
Yeah, they were.
I mean, if you read Mark Ryan Hagen's forewords to the book, you're like, wow, you are a pretentious hipster. We didn't have the word hipster back then.
No, but that's what they were.
I don't want to say that because I don't want to say
They were
that.
hipsters before being hipster was cool.
But you know what? I feel like, I don't know anything about the guy, so I don't want to.
No, yeah, you don't want to trash him. But.
I've got people I need to trash on this list. Let's not trash the guy who created what we
Vampire
all
the
agree is the
Masquerade, right?
second best. I mean, this is Vampire. This is the ones our girlfriends would play with us.
And the thing is about LARPing, too, I mean, especially, it especially lent itself to Vampire because Vampire, more than any other game in the system, was all about politics more than anything else.
Yeah, for the most part.
And, combat LARP? Go to an
Kinda
SCA gathering for that.
It was weird, actually. No, I did that.
Yeah.
I did Mind's Eye Theater once at my
Yeah.
sister's college, at
But-
Worcester Polytech. Funny that live action role playing at a technical college.
But
That was a
it's
shocker. And like there was combat, and like people were doing stuff, and I was like, no, I'm a werewolf. I want to hulk out and eat people. And they're like, well, we don't really do that. And I ended up just like talking to some chick the rest of the night.
Yeah. But I mean,
So,
but yeah, the political
Win-win, really.
aspect of it is really something that I think a lot of role-playing games in the Dungeons and Dragons vein never dealt with. You know, I mean, you can do that in some D&D settings, but you know, it's not really the most.
yeah,
forward
D&D
thing.
doesn't. I mean, they did D&D modern, but it doesn't lend itself
Yeah.
to
Oh, the D20
the
modern.
real
yeah.
world. Yeah, D20 modern.
Yeah,
It was just,
that was just a weak ripoff of World of Darkness
Right.
anyway.
They were trying. Well, they actually did a GURPS version, wasn't it? World of Darkness GURPS.
They did.
Yeah.
That was not that popular.
But we'll get to that.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway,
GURPS is somewhere else. Yes.
number one on our list, the undisputed champ, and I don't think this surprised anybody, is Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I didn't want to get bogged down in edition wars. There
Yeah.
are people who like some editions. There are people who don't like other editions. You have all heard my rant on 4th edition.
Right.
I would say as a
Go
general,
back to episode 2 of season 1.
I would say
watch it
as
there.
I would say as a general rule, whatever edition of Dungeons and Dragons you prefer, you're wrong. Let's leave it at that.
The only thing, the only reason why I want,
Except for
I
the
wanted to-
people who like 4th.
yeah, they were
They
wrong.
are wrong from everyone else's perspective.
I
No,
want-
I'm just going to stop. I'm going to shut up.
I wanted to
I'm not
break it
gonna let this
out
happen.
by edition for one simple fact was I view like 1E, 2E as, because well, let me back up for a second. This tasks that we had here to rank these all out,
Yeah.
I looked at it from how I enjoyed the system, not necessarily settings or anything like that, just
Yeah.
the simplicity and or whatever of the system and how I enjoyed that system. So looking at D&D,
Yeah.
1E, 2E is kind of the same system, 2E, a
Yeah.
tweak. Then 3 point whatever is its own. 4.
3 was essentially them borrowing the stuff from the other games that got really popular, like White Wolf and stuff like that, and incorporating it into D&D. I mean,
Well,
they put
I'm
in
talking
skill
about the
points and stuff.
system,
Well,
right.
but what I'm just trying to
Yeah.
describe. 3
Right.
was
Oh, yeah.
D&D incorporating stuff that other games had, that
Yeah.
other players,
Expanded
that
on skill
gamers
use.
wanted in D&D.
Right, expanded on skill use and such like that. So that's why the only reason why I wanted to break it out by almost like subdivisions here of as far as Dungeons and Dragons goes, how I'd even rank those.
Yeah.
you
But
know.
we could do a whole episode ranking editions of Dungeons and Dragons. But
Well,
again,
you
it
can
would-
throw it out real quick,
no more ranting about 4th.
I'm not.
No,
Well, 4th doesn't make
stop.
the list.
I know, I understand
1,
that,
2,
but-
3, and then 5.
Well, jury's still out.
Look,
on
look.
5.
I'll just say only this.
I'm basic.
Since you can still get the system reference document online for 3.5, 3.5 is like the Windows XP of Dungeons and Dragons. Whatever you think of the other one, it's kind of the common denominator for all of them. And
That's what it got a lot of people
Yeah.
playing. It was the best-selling edition of the
Yeah.
game. I mean, it was just, it really, and then they made it open gaming, so all these other people ripped it off.
yeah,
And if you
Piazzo.
were one of these, Piazzo. Like I was with Piazzo for a while there. During the 4th edition years, I was behind him. Like I didn't play Pathfinder, but I was like, oh, they're keeping the 3.5 thing going because the open gaming license, and yay. And like I don't really like identify with the anti-corporate like we hate Hasbro thing.
Right.
Like I didn't identify with that, but I understood that. Like it's like, okay, we're gonna protest this decision Hasbro made to ruin our game by making our own version of their game. So I guess Occupy Menzo Baranzan. I don't know. So
Pathfinder itself, I don't
but-
hate Pathfinder.
No, it's the
I hate the people who play Pathfinder.
and we'll get to that
Yeah.
because they also play a game on our other list.
Yes.
And since we're moving on to our worst list, number 3, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay.
We already had D&D, didn't we?
Okay. Yeah.
Did we need a new
well, and
system?
that's just it. D&D, like if you have like a fantasy setting of any kind, D&D is already there for it. Much like Rule 34 of the internet, if a universe exists, somebody has written D&D rules for it. So yeah, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Now we're talking about a game based on a tactical game, and the tactical game came first. I don't want to see it in the comments. Okay, look it up.
Yes.
World of
Warhammer
War-
came before.
Warhammer came
Before
first,
the role-playing
before the role-playing game.
more like World of Warhammer Craft.
Yeah, World of
What?
Warhammer Craft.
What?
Yeah. So anyway, every edition of the Warhammer tactical games has been essentially, well, just trying to get money. But let's face it.
Games Workshop is the worst
especially 40K have been trying to streamline and simplify the rules. Make them simple, easy to understand.
Right.
Because there's a lot of stuff going on the table. And then they created a gaming system that was completely incomprehensible for their tabletop game.
Yes. Like with the job system.
You had the job system, which some jobs could go into other jobs.
Right. And you had to have this job to get into that job, and you had to spend a certain amount to raise the percentage of that skill in order to qualify for the next job.
And there was like 100 of them.
Yes.
Like, I'm not interested in playing this. Where am I? And essentially going back to the D&D thing, you either have to do it free form like they did with White Wolf and Star Wars, where you just kind of pick everything, or you need to do it like, although, well, White Wolf had classes with the tribes and stuff like that.
Kind of.
Clans and But anyway, that just
classes.
really affected you. Okay, long story short, it was too confusing.
Yes.
And it used percentiles.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Warhammer, at least 40K, I don't know much about the original setting. The thing about Warhammer 40K, somewhere in there's a great RPG setting.
No, and the system killed it.
And the original, and the original fantasy, the lore.
Yeah,
and the fiction for 40K and Warhammer Fantasy is great. It's a very, very rich.
They killed it with the system.
40K even more so, I think. And 40K is, of course, more popular in the States than it is in. Like 40K is more popular in the States. Fantasy is more popular in Europe. But regardless, 40K has got one of the most understandable, recognizable settings in the whole culture. I mean, it gave us the term grimdark.
Yeah, you may. I mean, with something like that, I mean, you may as well just roll your own.
So essentially, they had
created a 40K role-playing game.
everything going for it.
Dark Heresy.
They had everything going for it, and they could have made it understandable and easily transferable from the tabletop game, or from the tactical game to the role-playing game, and they completely blew it.
I think part of the problem was they were trying to import the stat profiles from the models.
Well, they could have done that.
No,
but
that's what they were trying to do, and it just made it worse.
What they should have done is change it.
Right, we don't need to
add
try
a
to
zero.
fix it.
That's all you need to do.
Yeah, we don't need to try to fix it. We just have to hate on it.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to, it's terrible. I don't need a Warhammer Fantasy roleplay. I have Dungeons and Dragons.
Exactly.
Just like I don't need a Dungeons and Dragons MMO. I have World of Warcraft.
Right.
And I don't need a World of Warcraft tactical game because I have Warhammer.
Right.
I mean, it's already there. It's like the Lord of the Rings tactical game. No, I already have Warhammer. Number 2, and this gets to that demographic we were talking about before, GURPS. Generic Universal Role-Playing System by Steve Jackson. Now, I want to clarify something really quick. There are 2 Steve Jacksons that are relevant to gamer culture. The first one, well, actually, I don't know which one came first. I'll back up. One of them is British, and he's one of the co-creators of Warhammer. The other one is an American that likes putting his name on things, who got on his high horse when Wizards of the Coast released the D20 system as an open gaming license. The open gaming license for D20 really drove the industry to new heights because a lot of people made a ton of money and a lot of creativity was going on. And it doesn't matter that Steve Jackson did it first.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, you can actually the GURPS rule set is available as a free PDF online. So
yeah, and again, it's the whole thing. But he got on his high horse, and it's just Pathfinder. Okay, Steve Jackson thinks the Pathfinder players are smug. But that's where this all came from. People saying, I'm sorry, like I don't. It's really I'm hating on the players and not the game. So I apologize to Steve Jackson.
I guess that makes Pathfinder kind of the Fandroids of the gaming world.
Something like that. It's not. It's again, they okay. Well, I mean, we have an observation.
See, they took an idea of Dungeons & Dragons 3.5.
Right.
All right, and they said, okay, that's great. Now, 3.5 was still there, and then when Wizards of the Coast made 4th edition, and then Piazza said, okay, well, we got the open gaming license. We're going to still make money on this, because what happened was they got kicked out of Wizards of the Coast when they shut down Dungeons & Dragons magazine. So, because Piazza was publishing that for them. And when they stopped production, they said, okay, see you later. So they said, okay, well, now we need to still make money. So they created Pathfinder. And then all the people who liked 3.5 but got mad at Hasbro for making 4th said, oh, we're going to play this game. And so now, on the internet, whenever there's something going on with 3.5...
The internet, you say.
The internet, yes. Yes, whenever I'm in a forum or something and they bring up Pathfinder, like it's this great, awesome innovation where you can do anything, I go, were doing it already with D&D.
Yeah.
It's like, it's nothing new, it's nothing fantastic, it's the same game.
They added some neat stuff. They
Yeah.
clarified and cleaned up some
Yeah,
things.
Yeah.
but they didn't, nothing else that was special.
They're essentially ripping off somebody else's good idea.
Exactly, and that's what drives
Which brings me to my observation on well, I mean, I was just gonna the observation on you had something prepared for Pathfinder players.
The Pathfinder players, yes.
Yeah.
Because of how smug they are, it's not every gamer that owns a Mac drives a Prius, and not every gamer that drives a Prius owns a Mac, but every gamer that owns a Mac and drives a Prius plays Pathfinder.
Because that segues, with people who stole what first,
That's right.
But anyway, we're getting off topic.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this some other time because we need to get to number 1 on our list, which I think this got here because of like a lot of different reasons, but it sort of represents a lot of games that are very much like it, which is Rifts.
Oh,
Which, first of all, I want to talk about something. Game designers, publishers, gamer people,
public service announcement. Go.
no more percentile systems. None. Stop. 100 is too many. Okay. In fact, you guys on Rifts, and well, just about anything from Palladium, because the Robotech
Yeah,
role-playing
Palladium
game.
Games is... Their whole thing was to try to make everything as complicated as possible.
Like, well, they went for something. Well, and Steve Jackson kind of did this with Car Wars.
Yeah.
We
When one turn took an hour.
can get into this. You know what? I'm going to save my Car Wars observations for
tactical games?
for our tactical game episode. But, no, when you start talking about 1D100s and percentiles, it just gets complicated. The Middle Earth role-playing game had the same problem.
Well, we were talking about, I mean, you want a better way to do it. I mean, we were talking about Fudge before the show. Simple game, created back in the 90s by a
Well, I
guy
was going
named
to ask you
Stefano
guys
Sullivan.
about personal favorites, because I didn't know anything about Fudge until you mentioned it.
I'd never heard of it until
So-
you mentioned it.
But you
Take the floor.
But you essentially, you're rolling D3s, 4 of them, and you have a hierarchy of,
So it's always 4.
yeah,
Okay.
I think that's how it works.
Yeah, no, that
But
makes-
yeah,
that-
there's some modifications based on, whether you're good, great, exceptional, and those are the actual rankings.
Yeah, it uses adjectives instead of points.
And
That cracked me up.
But the thing is, when you roll the dice, you're basically rolling +1, 0, or -1, and that gets you a nice bell curve-ish distribution from statistics. If you have a set of Fudge dice, you don't need percentiles.
And I think what people like about it is like when you talk about that bell curve
Yeah.
issue of saying like, well, yeah, math nerds would think this was cool, but it's really simple to understand.
Yeah.
Which is also something I think, just getting back to D&D for a minute with 5th edition, is they made something that people could learn to play right away.
Right.
Which is, they hadn't done that in a while.
I did see something, because I'm subscribed to a bunch of groups on the internet, on Facebook about...
Internet, you say.
On the internet, I say, yes.
You can subscribe to things on this internet.
Yeah, on this Facebook thing. And they have groups of like-minded individuals. And I was in a 2E Dungeons & Dragons group. And, and occasionally someone will post something about 5th edition, and then all the butthurt people jump on them. This is a 2nd edition group.
I saw that. No,
Go
I was
away.
in the same group. I saw it.
Go away.
What?
But someone was
Grow up.
But someone was, basically trashing on 5e, saying, it's like, Dungeons and Dragons for dummies and idiots because they've dumbed it down so much. I'm like, no, it's actually nice and easy and good.
So I think the argument from well, no, because it's a 2nd edition group, so.
Yeah, a 1E group.
Because no, as a 2nd edition player, like 5th feels more like 2nd edition than 3rd does.
What I was saying about 5th was that it's like a mash between 3 and 2, and it has like the soul of 2 and like the mechanics of 3.
Well, I was going to ask you to mention something else you really like, but I guess that's yours.
Oh no, that's a segue. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, no, because you mentioned
non-sequitur.
Fudge, which I think, if you check out Fudge, because I checked it out. So you had Fudge. So, and if I wanted to bring up one just really quick that would have been number 4 on the list had we gone that far, which we all mentioned was Paranoia.
Oh, Paranoia.
Which and the stats don't matter.
No.
Yeah.
It's all about the setting.
Yeah.
It is a bunch of people living in a police state controlled by friend computer, and they all have a rank based on a color of the rainbow, and
Citizen Stephen 4?
It's I don't know.
Friend citizen?
Citizen Stephen 4?
Yes, yeah.
That is far above the audience's security clearance. You're not allowed to go into any further detail. friend computer will be very unhappy with you.
Anyway,
questions,
check it out. Check it out. If you're unfamiliar with it,
Paradox.
check it out. It's hard to explain, but it's hilarious.
Yes. Playing a
It's
game of Paranoia is
It
hilarious.
was the first humor game I ever actually played. Sort of.
Another good one, Tales from the Floating Bag.
Yes. Which that's
Swing long, nasty, pointy thing with panache.
Yeah, swing nasty pointy thing with wow. That takes on whole new connotations when I think about it. That was probably intended on there. Probably.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
Yeah. A game where stats are gun, big gun and really big gun.
Yep.
All right, so something that you guys hated, Brian.
Oh,
I think I know what you're going to bring up.
I need to think about it a second, actually. But well,
Are you sure?
all right. Well, we're talking about one particular game called Fatal, which is
Again, another one I'd never heard of.
I know,
until
but as
now.
soon as I researched it, I learned that it was the most hated game on planet Earth.
all I can really say about it is that a writer named Jason Sarton wrote a review about it 10, 15 years ago, which is one of the funniest and snarkiest reviews anyone's ever written of a game. And it basically comes out as the sort of game that was written by sociopaths for sociopaths, and absolutely no one else would ever want to play it.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad. Like, I don't even want to get into some of the more objectionable content that I read about, but it's sort of like, what if the worst kind of person you've ever gamed with
Yeah.
designed a gaming system?
Nice.
And on top of all that, the combat mechanics are terrible. It's like,
Man,
there's one example in the
hundreds,
review
with
where
the
you
hundreds, oh my god. They had a
you
D1, they had a D10,000 roll.
Oh, goodness.
yeah, one of which is to pretty much end the entire world, which doesn't come up nearly enough, I think.
I got as far as the only people in the game's universe were white Christians, and
Yeah.
But again, we're a bit older,
Right.
so we haven't been on this internet you keep speaking
Yes,
of.
I
Now,
as long.
the flip side, I've never played it, but there's a game called World of Cinnabar
Oh, I think I've
where
heard of that one.
the setting is Mars converted into a interstellar world ship. And it had a reputation for a long time as being one of the worst games, but it was also one of those games that was like, so bad it's good. I mean, the whole thing was so ridiculously over the top that you may never want to play it, but it's kind of an interesting setting.
Yeah, I think a lot of these games, because there was an Alien and Predator RPG that got reviewed in Dragon way back, and
Yeah.
they sort of talked about it, like just getting bogged down in the minutia, Palladium games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just like coming up with a rule governing every possible individual situation and a stat governing it. I mean, it's just you're asking players to remember too much.
Oh,
I am-
fourth edition.
If you
I am told there's one word that strikes fear into a hardcore D&D gamer. Grappling.
The grappling rules. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I guess, and all these systems came out after everybody had those complaints about D&D. But I don't know. I mean, was there anything on your hated list that you really wanted to get out there,
I think
Keith?
we covered it really. I'd say something like Rifts or anything like Chaosium games.
You never get into this. I mean, people kept trying
Call
to
of
get me to
Cthulhu.
play Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
But that was Chaosium, right?
Yeah, that's Chaosium.
The various different Star Trek games, of which a couple of them were actually decent. Yeah, I think Last Unicorn game, Star Trek game, should get an honorable mention on the best list, only because everybody was really excited about it and everybody really liked it. And then Wizards of the Coast bought Last Unicorn games, and they already owned Star Wars, and so Paramount pulled the license.
Yeah.
And this game that we were all excited about dematerialized.
I forget. Well, someone else has it after Last Unicorn because I have the narrator's guide and the player's guide for that Star Trek game.
Yeah, no, there was one that
I forget, and all the Last Unicorn stuff is readily
well, yeah,
usable.
because it was written by the same people.
Yeah.
They or much of the same. As I
Yeah.
understand it, they picked up shop, started a new company, or started working for
Yeah.
another one, and petitioned Paramount for the license.
I take that up because I thought it would be kind of cool.
Although I don't know, you would think a Star Wars or Star Trek role-playing game would be more popular with the embedded fan base and all those episodes and movies.
And all those continuities.
You do whatever they wanted.
But anyway, I guess that's it. You have your incontrovertible list of best and worst role-playing games. If you have any comments about that or want to change something, like you're a GURPS player or something, I don't care.
Dude.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Keep being awesome.